He sacrifices virgins for wealth and power. This is the story of King Zubri, the unsatisfied king. The kingdom of Ngara was known far and wide for its lush lands, golden rivers, and people who smiled even in hard times. But behind the sparkling walls of the king's palace, a shadow lingered, one that no visitor dared speak of. King Zubri was young, tall, and strikingly handsome. His robe shimmered like morning sunlight, and his crown reflected the glory of the kingdom. Yet, for all his beauty and presence, Zubri was never satisfied. He wanted more than wealth. He wanted respect, power, and promotions beyond the boundaries of his kingdom. Titles and honors were not enough. He desired a place in the history of kings, a legacy that would make his name immortal. But power in Ngara was not given freely. Even the most loyal advisors and ministers could only speak of it in whispers. The king knew that ambition alone would not be enough to climb higher. He needed a secret that no one else possessed. One morning, as the golden sun bathed the palace gardens in bright light, Zubri walked among the flowers, his eyes distant. A servant approached cautiously. "Your Majesty," the servant said, "the neighboring kingdoms send word of promotions and honors. They speak of those who lead bravely and fairly, yet some say your decisions lack favor." Zubri's jaw tightened. "Then I must do more than lead. I must do what no king dares," he muttered to himself. His mind wandered to the old stories he had heard as a boy, stories whispered in villages about a spirit who could grant kings extraordinary power if offered the proper sacrifice. It was said that this spirit appeared as a giant serpent, shimmering like silver in the daylight, demanding a pure offering. Those who obeyed the serpent gained wisdom, favor, and promotions beyond their dreams. But the price was hidden, and only the daring, or the desperate, could bear it. Zubri thought of the kingdom, of the respect he craved, of the glory of having his name sung in the markets and palaces alike. And then he thought of the young women in his court, virgins chosen for their beauty and purity. He smiled, a cruel smile that caught the sunlight. "If the spirit can grant me power," he whispered, "then I will offer what it asks. Let the kingdom remember my name forever." By midday, the decision had been made. King Zubri summoned his closest advisor, a man named Juma, known for his wisdom and cunning. "Juma," Zubri said, "I intend to gain what no king has ever had. I will ascend beyond the limits of our kingdom. And I will need your help." Juma, hesitant, bowed low. "My king, I do not understand." "What do you mean?" Zubri's eyes gleamed. "I speak of power through sacrifice. There is a spirit, a serpent, that grants promotions and favors. But it demands purity. It demands virgins. Bring them to me, and we shall see our kingdom prosper as never before." Juma's face paled. "Your Majesty, the tales of the serpent are old. Some say it is cursed. Many who seek its power are destroyed." Zubri's voice was firm, commanding. "I do not fear tales. I fear nothing. Prepare the offerings. Tomorrow, we begin." And so, the plan was set. The brightest day in Ngara would witness the beginning of a king's dark ambition. The next morning, the palace of Ngara buzzed with preparation. Servants swept the grand marble floors until they shone, golden sunlight spilling across the hallways. Courtiers whispered nervously, sensing something unusual in the air, but no one dared question the king. King Zubri sat in his high chair in the throne room, his dark eyes gleaming with anticipation. The virgins had been chosen carefully, young women of noble families, their innocence untouched, their beauty celebrated in the songs of the kingdom. One by one, they were led into the ceremonial hall. Their silk gowns shimmered under the bright sunlight streaming through the palace windows. They carried flowers and small gifts, unaware of the fate that awaited them. Zubri rose, his tall figure commanding every gaze. "Today," he proclaimed, his voice echoing in the golden hall, "we honor the spirits of our ancestors. Today, we ask for guidance, wisdom, and favor for this kingdom." The virgins knelt, unsure of what was expected. Juma, the king's advisor, stepped forward and spoke softly, "Your Majesty, the serpent spirit awaits your offering. Are you certain this is the path you wish to take?" Zubri nodded, his expression unyielding. "I am certain. I will do what no king has dared. I will rise higher than all who came before me. Bring forth the serpent." A hush fell over the hall. Servants opened a hidden chamber beneath the throne, revealing a long, mirrored pit. From its depths emerged a creature of legend, a serpent, its scales glinting like polished silver in the sunlight. Its eyes were sharp and intelligent, studying the assembly. The virgins gasped. Some tried to rise, but Juma gently guided them back. "Do not fear, for only the king may approach," he whispered. Zubri stepped forward, every movement precise and confident. He knelt before the serpent, offering one of the virgins, a girl named Amina, chosen for her grace and purity. She trembled, but Zubri's calm gaze held her in place. "Spirit of Ngara," the king intoned, "I offer this pure soul in devotion. Grant me wisdom, grant me favor, grant me power to lead this kingdom to greatness." The serpent's eyes glowed brighter, and it slowly slithered forward. Amina's heart pounded in her chest, her breath caught in fear, but Zubri remained unwavering. The serpent coiled around her, its silvery body gleaming under the sunlight, and then, in an instant, she vanished. A collective gasp filled the hall. Courtiers and servants stared in shock, but Zubri did not flinch. The serpent then turned to him, and in its open mouth, it regurgitated piles of gold coins, precious jewels, and small sacks filled with sparkling gemstones. The light reflected in a dazzling display across the palace walls. Zubri's eyes widened with triumph. He stepped forward, gathering the wealth in his hands. "Behold," he cried, his voice ringing through the halls. "This is the power of devotion. This is the reward for courage and ambition." Juma bowed, a mixture of fear and awe in his expression. "Your Majesty, it works." "Yes," Zubri said, smiling. "It works. And from this day forward, Ngara shall rise as never before. I shall not rest until my name is sung across the lands, my legacy immortal." The courtiers applauded, though their eyes flickered with unease. Whispers began to spread quietly among them. Some wondered about the fate of the virgins. Others dared not question, for the king's gaze was sharp, and his smile, though charming, concealed a shadow they could not fathom. Over the following weeks, the kingdom flourished. Zubri received honors from neighboring lands. Titles were bestowed upon him by distant rulers, praising his wisdom and leadership. His advisors marveled at his rise, unable to comprehend the secret behind his success. But Zubri knew. He had tasted the power that came from obedience to the serpent. And he would not stop. More virgins were chosen. More offerings made. Each time, the serpent rewarded him with wealth, favor, and influence. Yet, as the days passed, a subtle change began to appear. Courtiers glanced nervously at the king. The palace servants whispered to one another in hushed tones. Even the birds in the garden seemed quieter, as if sensing the unnatural force that had been unleashed. Zubri, however, remained undeterred. He would not let fear weaken him. Every sunrise reminded him that ambition demanded sacrifice, and he was willing to pay the price. The kingdom was his, and its glory was his to claim. But every reward bore a hidden cost. Every virgin vanished, leaving families grieving. Every coin gained carried the weight of a soul lost. And though the serpent's favor shone brightly in the daylight, there was a creeping shadow over the palace, a shadow that promised that one day, the scales of justice would tip. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. King Zubri's kingdom, Ngara, flourished like never before. The sun rose over fields of golden crops, rivers sparkled with crystal clarity, and trade thrived between neighboring lands. The king's reputation soared, tales of his wisdom, fairness, and unmatched leadership reached distant kingdoms. Yet behind this brilliant facade, the palace hid a darker story. Every promotion, every honor, every triumph of the king was tied to the serpent. And with each virgin offered, Zubri felt his power grow, but also a subtle unease creeping at the edges of his mind. In the daylight, the palace was a scene of splendor. Courtiers wore fine silks, merchants presented rare gifts, and Zubri moved among them in golden robes, his posture regal, his eyes sharp. His beauty and presence commanded respect, but also inspired whispers among the more perceptive observers. One afternoon, a young noblewoman approached Zubri. "Your Majesty," she said politely, "the people of Ngara celebrate your success, yet there are whispers of the girls who enter the palace and never return." Zubri's eyes narrowed. "Whispers," he repeated, his voice calm but cold. "Stories are made by those jealous of greatness. Ngara prospers because I lead. That is all you need to know." The noblewoman bowed nervously, but the unease lingered in the corridors. Servants exchanged glances, and mothers in the streets held their daughters a little closer. Despite the murmurs, the king pressed on. Each morning, he reviewed matters of state, made decisions on trade, and adjudicated disputes. By mid-afternoon, he would visit the ceremonial hall where the serpent awaited. There, in daylight, he performed the ritual of offering a chosen virgin. Today's offering was a girl named Zahara, known for her kindness and radiant smile. She was led to the hall in a flowing white gown, the sun streaming through the tall windows, reflecting off the golden floors. Zubri approached, his black eyes glinting with both determination and a strange pride. "Spirit of Ngara," he intoned, "I present this offering for the prosperity of the kingdom. Grant me guidance and favor upon Ngara, that my name may be sung by generations." The serpent, its scales glinting like polished silver in the daylight, emerged from its mirrored pit. It coiled gracefully, its eyes fixed on the girl. Before the court could react, Zahara disappeared into its folds. A gasp echoed, but Zubri remained unmoved. The serpent vomited a cascade of gold coins, sparkling gemstones, and rare artifacts, which Zubri gathered triumphantly. Courtiers stared, awed and terrified. Many whispered, "How does the king achieve such favor? What power lies in his hands?" Even though the palace was bright and sunlit, a subtle tension lingered. People could feel the unnatural influence of the serpent, and rumors spread faster than the golden rivers. By the following morning, travelers brought word to neighboring kingdoms of the mysterious wealth and unmatched leadership of King Zubri. But there was more. One evening, as the sun dipped low but the sky remained bright with orange and gold hues, a rare twilight, the first night scene, Zubri returned to the hall alone. He whispered to the serpent, "Soon, I will rule not just Ngara, but lands beyond. Bring me favor, as always." The serpent's eyes flashed crimson in the dying sunlight. It hissed softly, a warning carried on the warm breeze that filtered through the tall windows. Zubri felt a pang of unease. For the first time, he noticed that the serpent's appetite seemed insatiable, and its presence, though obedient, carried a weight he could not measure. "Fear nothing," he muttered to himself. "I am the king. I command destiny itself." Yet that night, even in the bright, golden halls, shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally. Courtiers claimed to hear faint whispers, and the wind through the open windows carried a low, serpentine hiss. The king's wealth and favor were growing, but so was the sense that something in the balance of power was stirring, a force that demanded respect, obedience, and ultimately, vigilance. The next morning, the people of Ngara noticed a subtle change. The crops were more plentiful, the markets busier, the king's orders executed with unusual precision. Yet mothers tightened their hold on daughters walking through the palace gates. Even the youngest children asked why some girls never returned home after visiting the palace. Zubri ignored the growing unease. Each day, he performed the ritual. Each day, the serpent rewarded him with unimaginable wealth. And each day, the whispers grew louder. By the end of the month, Zubri's ambition had taken a visible form. The palace grew taller, towers of gold adorned the rooftops, and banners flew high proclaiming his glory. But beneath the splendor, the shadow of the serpent's appetite stretched long and cold, even in the bright daylight. And in this part of the story, the kingdom learned an important truth: power obtained through fear and sacrifice may shine in the daylight, but shadows linger, and whispers carry the weight of unseen consequences. The kingdom of Ngara had never been brighter, yet the shadow of unease grew longer with each passing day. King Zubri, now at the height of his power, sat atop his gilded throne, examining the kingdom's daily reports. Gold filled the treasury beyond imagination, the markets bustled with unprecedented trade, and neighboring kingdoms showered him with respect. But not all was well. The king noticed strange patterns: servants whispering hurriedly in corners, courtiers avoiding his gaze, and travelers reporting odd happenings in the outskirts of Ngara. "Your Majesty," Juma said one morning, approaching cautiously, "there are murmurs among the people. They speak of vanished girls, of rituals unseen, and of strange hisses heard in the palace halls." Zubri's eyes flashed with irritation. "Do they question my leadership? Or do they simply fear what they cannot understand?" he demanded. Juma bowed low. "They fear, my king. But fear breeds unrest. The kingdom may prosper, yet shadows grow in corners where the sun cannot reach." Zubri waved a hand dismissively. "I will not be distracted by whispers. The serpent rewards me, and the kingdom thrives. That is all that matters." Yet even as he spoke, the palace walls seemed colder, the corridors quieter than usual. The sunlight streaming through the windows no longer brought warmth, it highlighted the emptiness that lingered beneath the grandeur. By midday, Zubri was informed that one of his trusted generals had been conspicuously absent from morning exercises. Another, a nobleman of great wealth, had begun speaking openly of leaving the kingdom for fear of the strange disappearances. The king's stomach tightened. For the first time, he felt a flicker of doubt. Could it be possible that the serpent's gift carried a price too heavy to bear? That evening, though the sky was still painted with lingering orange sunlight, a rare dusk settled over the palace. Zubri, unable to sleep, walked the long halls toward the ceremonial chamber. The air felt thick, heavier than usual. He could hear faint, almost musical hisses echoing softly, carried by the gentle evening breeze. The serpent lay coiled in its mirrored pit, scales reflecting the dim light like molten silver. Its eyes glowed red, sharper than ever, and it seemed to study the king with an intelligence that made him uneasy. "Why do you hesitate, my king?" the serpent hissed, a voice like a melody and a warning at once. Zubri swallowed hard. I have done all you asked. I have provided offerings. I have brought prosperity to this kingdom." The serpent's coils tightened slightly. "Prosperity demands balance. Yet you grow careless. The people whisper, the chosen resist, and the shadows lengthen. Can you maintain control?" Zubri's pulse quickened. He had never seen the serpent display disapproval. Its presence had always been a source of power and reward. Now it was a judge, weighing his decisions. "I will maintain control," he said, trying to sound resolute. "I am the king. I command destiny itself." The serpent's eyes flickered. "Power taken lightly invites ruin. Choose wisely, or your kingdom may become a tomb of ambition." Zubri forced a laugh, masking his fear. "I am prepared for all challenges. I am Zubri, ruler of Ngara." But even as he spoke, distant screams echoed faintly through the palace corridors. Not loud enough to be heard clearly, yet enough to remind him of the true cost of his ambition. He turned away from the serpent, walking hastily to his chambers. That night, though the sky remained bright with the lingering sun, he felt the cold hand of guilt and fear touch his heart for the first time. The following days brought more warning signs. Servants fled without explanation, young noble girls disappeared without record, and the people began murmuring of curses. Markets slowed as fear spread quietly among traders. One morning, a delegation of elders from the neighboring villages arrived, their faces grim. "Your Majesty," their leader said, bowing with respect yet speaking firmly, "we have come to warn you. The spirits of the land are restless. The rivers run uneven, and the crops no longer flourish as they once did. We fear a curse is upon this kingdom." Zubri's heart pounded. "A curse?" he asked, his voice tinged with irritation. "There is no curse. My kingdom prospers as never before. Do not test my patience." But the elders would not yield. "Prosperity gained by innocent blood is fleeting, Your Majesty. The land senses imbalance. If sacrifices continue, Ngara itself may rebel." Zubri clenched his fist. "I will not be threatened by tales and superstition. I am the king. The kingdom thrives because of me, and my decisions are just." Still, doubt gnawed at him. Even as the sun poured gold across the palace gardens, shadows lingered in his mind. He could no longer dismiss the whispers, the vanished girls, or the faint hisses that seemed to follow him even in daylight. By midweek, Zubri noticed a strange exhaustion overtaking him. His body, though well-fed and cared for, felt heavier. His mind, though sharp, carried a fog of unease. The wealth of the kingdom could not mask the growing weight of his deeds. The serpent, coiled elegantly in its pit, no longer seemed a friend. It hissed softly whenever the king approached, a constant reminder that power came with demands. Each virgin offered brought gold, favor, and promotion, but also a growing unease, a creeping guilt that no treasure could erase. Zubri tried to ignore it. He spent his days ruling with brilliance, his nights pacing the palace halls, haunted by whispers and the unseen eyes of the serpent. The kingdom's people began to look at him with suspicion, the markets whispered with unease, and the palace servants became fearful shadows of themselves. Even as sunlight filled the grand halls, the weight of ambition pressed down on the king. He realized that no treasure could erase the shadow of sacrifice, and no title could protect him from the creeping fear of what he had unleashed. King Zubri's kingdom, once the pride of all lands, now bore the weight of unease. Though the sun still shone brightly over the golden fields and bustling markets, a subtle tension shadowed every street and palace corridor. Whispers of vanished girls and strange happenings had spread beyond Ngara, reaching distant kingdoms that now regarded Zubri with caution, suspicion, and even fear. The king, once confident in his absolute control, now walked the palace halls alone, his golden robes heavy on his tall frame. The serpent, once a gleaming source of power, lay coiled in its pit, watching him silently. Its eyes no longer glimmered with favor but with a quiet, unyielding judgment. Zubri knew that the time of reckoning had come. One morning, bright sunlight spilling through the palace windows, Zubri called a council. Generals, advisors, and elders gathered, their faces serious. "Your Majesty," Juma began, bowing low, "the people are restless. They speak of curses and wrath. They no longer cheer at the market square, and whispers of rebellion grow daily." Zubri's voice, though commanding, carried an edge of unease. "I have built this kingdom from nothing. I have provided wealth, security, and honor. Why do you speak of rebellion?" An elder stepped forward, her silver hair shining in the sun. "Your Majesty, no kingdom built on fear can last. Every virgin offered, every innocent harmed, leaves a mark. The land, the people, and the spirits themselves cry out for balance." For the first time, Zubri's confidence faltered. He looked to the serpent, whose silver scales reflected the sunlight, its eyes fixed upon him. The creature seemed to whisper without sound, "All actions bear consequence." Driven by desperation, Zubri decided to make one final offering. Perhaps if he could satisfy the serpent completely, all unrest would vanish. That afternoon, a young girl named Sophia was brought to the ceremonial hall. She was the daughter of a loyal noble, innocent and radiant under the sunlight streaming through the windows. Zubri knelt before the serpent and spoke. "Spirit of Ngara, I offer this final gift. Grant me peace, stability, and the continuation of my reign. The serpent rose, its body shimmering like molten silver. It coiled around Sophia, and in a swift motion, she disappeared. Immediately, piles of gold, rare gems, and treasures were cast forth. But this time, the kingdom did not rejoice. Outside the palace, crops withered, markets fell silent, and an unnatural wind swept through the streets. Even in bright daylight, a chill filled the air. The people of Nara whispered prayers, fearing the consequences of the king's actions. Zubri, for the first time, felt a pang of fear. The serpent's eyes glowed crimson, more intense than ever. It hissed softly, a warning carried on the breeze. Power taken through cruelty bears a heavier cost than ambition can imagine, it seemed to say. Within days, the consequences became undeniable. Traders from neighboring kingdoms refused to visit. Crops withered despite sunlight and care. The river, once full and vibrant, ran sluggish and murky. The people whispered openly now, their fear turning into anger. Even those closest to Zubri began to question his rule. Generals plotted quietly, advisors shook their heads in worry, and the once loyal servants left the palace, refusing to witness further horrors. Zubri tried to maintain control, but the wealth and treasures could not mask the crumbling foundations of his reign. Each coin gained had come with a soul lost, and now the weight of countless innocent lives pressed down on him. On a bright morning, the sun glinting off the golden towers of the palace, the final reckoning arrived. The serpent, coiled in its mirrored pit, rose higher than ever. Its eyes met Zubri's, and without a sound, it uncoiled and surged forward. The king tried to flee, but the halls twisted unnaturally, leading him back to the ceremonial chamber. In the presence of the serpent, Zubri fell to his knees, the full weight of his actions clear. You sought power through fear and blood, the serpent hissed, its voice both melody and doom. Now, you will understand the balance of life. Your reign ends, and the kingdom will heal without your hand. Before Zubri could speak, the serpent enveloped him. A brilliant flash of silver and sunlight filled the chamber, and when it faded, Zubri was gone. The treasures he had amassed scattered across the hall, glinting harmlessly under the bright light. In the aftermath, the people of Ngara began to restore their kingdom. The crops grew abundant once more, the rivers ran clear, and markets flourished under the rule of elders and wise councils. Mothers brought their daughters to the palace gates freely, no longer fearing the shadows within. The serpent, its work complete, vanished from sight, leaving only a silver scale behind, a reminder of the price of ambition unchecked. The story of King Zubri became legend, told from one village to another, a tale of ambition, sacrifice, and the heavy cost of cruelty. Children were taught that true power lies not in wealth gained through fear, but in kindness, wisdom, and fairness. The moral lesson. The tale of King Zubri carries lessons for all. 1. Ambition without morality leads to ruin. Power gained through fear and cruelty is fleeting. 2. Innocence should never be sacrificed for personal gain. The cost of harming others weighs heavier than gold. 3. True leadership is earned through wisdom, fairness, and service. Wealth and titles alone cannot secure lasting respect. 4. Every action has consequences. Even in sunlight, where everything seems bright and safe, shadows of misdeeds remain. Please subscribe to our channel, like, comment and share for more interesting African stories. Thank you for watching.